Hello and welcome to BYJU'S Exam Prep IAS. Welcome to the discussion on the daily quiz for the 8th of May 2022. Before we begin, there is a small announcement. As part of the crash course for the upcoming UPSC Prelims examination, we have been running the Target Prelims 2022 course. And as part of this series, tomorrow we will be having a discussion on the important government schemes. This discussion will be presented by Harshmeet sir. So do catch us live at 7:30 p.m. on the 9th of May. To be notified when we go live, you can set a reminder, the link for which you can find in the description box below. Now let's start with the first question of the day. The first question reads, which of the following statements is or are correct? The first statement, the Supreme Court has had a fixed bench strength of 34 since the adoption of the Indian Constitution. The second statement, the Constitution does not prescribe a minimum age for appointment as a judge of the Supreme Court. The third statement, the Supreme Court and High Court judges hold office until he or she attains the age of 65. Now let's have a look at the options. Option A, 1 and 2 only. Option B, 2 and 3 only. Option C, 2 only. And option D, 1 and 3 only. Now what is the context for this question? Recently, two new judges have been appointed to the Supreme Court as per the notification of the Department of Justice. Let's come back to the question. Please note that the bench strength of Supreme Court has always not been 34. Originally, this number was 8. This included 7 other judges and 1 Chief Justice of India. Subsequently, this number was increased progressively. From the current 8, now it stands at 34. For each of these changes, the Parliament had to pass the Supreme Court Amendment Act. The latest one was in 2019, wherein the number of judges at the Supreme Court was increased from 31 to 34. So by this, we can rule out that the statement 1 is false. Now moving on to the second statement. The Constitution does not prescribe a minimum age for appointment as a judge of the Supreme Court. The Constitution specifies certain qualifications for a person to be appointed as a Supreme Court. The first condition being he or she should be a citizen of India. The second condition is that he or she should have been a judge of the High Court for 5 years, or he or she should have been an advocate for 10 years. Alternatively, he or she should also be a distinguished jurist in the view of the President. Only these qualifications have been mentioned in the Constitution. We can note that there is no minimum age prescription for appointment as the Supreme Court judge. So this statement is right. Moving on to the last statement, the Supreme Court and High Court judges hold office until he or she attains the age of 65. Please note, for the Supreme Court judges it is 65, but whereas for the High Court judges it is 62. So by this, the third statement is also wrong. The final answer is option C, 2 only. Of late, the vacancies in the Supreme Court has been a major point of concern. This is because the limited number of judges have had to deal with a number of important constitutional cases. In a rather positive development, the collegium headed by the Chief Justice of India, that is N.V. Ramana, and 4 other justices have been able to unanimously recommend 11 names so far. This will address the judicial vacancy issue in the Supreme Court. Moving on to the second question. Which of the following pairs of traditional sport and associated state is or are correctly matched? There are 4 sports and the associated state mentions. The first one being Tangta in Manipur. The second one, Gatka, Punjab. Third one, Kalaripayattu, Kerala. And the fourth one, Silambam, Tamil Nadu. The options being A, 2 and 3 only. Option B, 1 and 3 only. Option C, 2, 3 and 4 only. And option D, all of the above. That is 1, 2, 3 and 4. Now let's understand each of these traditional sports very briefly. Tangta is a martial art from the 17th century. It is being practiced by the Meitei people of Manipur. It is also known by the name Yuen Lanlong. It is basically an armed martial art. The second one, Gatka, is a weapon-based martial art form practiced primarily by Sikhs in the state of Punjab. Kalaripayattu is one of the oldest martial arts in India. Though practiced in some parts of South India, it originated in the state of Kerala. According to legends, it is believed that sage Parshurama started the practice of Kalaripayattu. Kalaripayattu includes kicks, strikes and weapon-based practice. Silambam is a martial art. It found patronage in the southern kingdoms of Pandya, Chola, and Chera. It is a form of staff fencing and it is primarily practiced in the state of Tamil Nadu. So by this understanding, we know the answer is D. Now, what is the context for this question? As part of the upcoming Khelo India Youth Games, 5 traditional sports would be included in the upcoming game. This was recently announced by the Union Minister for Youth Affairs and Sports, Sri Anurag Thakur. While 3 of these games are Tangta, Gatka and Kalaripaitu, the other 2 games would be Malakam and Yogasana. Moving on to the next question. Question number 3. Which of the following statements is or are incorrect with respect to Forex reserves? The first statement. The 4 components of Forex reserves are foreign currency assets, gold, special drawing rights, and the reserve position in the International Monetary Fund, with gold accounting for the largest share among the 4 components. Second statement. The monetary policy tightening and interest rate hikes by the US Federal Reserve and depreciation of other currencies are some of the factors contributing to the current decrease in India's foreign reserve. Let's have a look at the options. A, 1 only, B, 2 only, C, both 1 and 2, and option D, neither 1 nor 2. Now, what is the context? In the last 8 months, after having hit a record high of 642 billion in September 2021, India's foreign exchange reserves have fallen below 600 billion mark. The article mentions the reasons for this decline in Forex reserves. But before we get down, we need to understand what Forex reserves. Note, Forex reserves includes foreign currency assets, gold, special drawing rights and reserve position in the International Monetary Fund. Special drawing rights is a supplementary foreign exchange reserve. It is an asset maintained by the IMF. Please note that these special drawing rights, or SDR as they are commonly referred to, are units of accounts for IMF. They are not a currency per se. Now let us understand what is reserve position or reserve tranche position. It is basically a segment of the IMF member countries quota that is accessible to it without having to pay any fees or without having to implement any economic reform. Please note, all these 4 foreign currency assets, gold and special drawing rights are all part of the Forex reserves of India. There is a second part to this question. It states that among these 4 parts, gold accounts for the largest share. This is wrong. So what accounts for the largest share? It is the foreign currency assets. It consists of multi-currency assets. Please note, even though we specify India's Forex reserves in terms of US dollars, this foreign currency asset does not contain only of US dollars. It also consists of currencies like the euro and pound. So by this, the first statement is wrong. Moving on to the next statement. The US Federal Reserve has part of its monetary policy tightening has been increasing the interest rates. Now let's understand how this move of the US Federal Reserve can impact the Forex reserves of India. As the interest rates increase in the US, foreign portfolio investors who had previously invested in India will withdraw their money to invest in the US economy. This foreign capital outflow will inevitably decrease India's Forex reserves. Also note, there is another factor which is impacting our decrease in Forex reserves. This is known as depreciation of other currencies. As I already mentioned, foreign currency assets includes other major currencies like the pound and the euro. Now what is depreciation? The value is coming down, and since our Forex reserve constitutes euro and pound, inevitably our Forex reserves value will go down. So by this explanation, we know that this statement is correct. Please note, the question asks for incorrect statement. So according to this, the answer to the question is A. Moving on to the next question. Which of the following statements is or are correct with respect to pangolins? The first statement, they are naturally distributed across the continents of Asia, Africa and Australia. The second statement, being the most trafficked animal in the world, all species of pangolins are classified as critically endangered. Third one, they have large protective keratin scales and are the only known mammals with this feature. The 4 options are like this. Option A, 1 and 2 only. Option B, 3 only. Option C, 1, 2 and 3. And option D, 2 and 3 only. Pangolins are a mammal. They are naturally distributed only across 2 continents, which is Asia and Africa. And in Africa, it is majorly in the sub-Saharan African region. It is not found in Australia. First statement is wrong. Second statement, pangolin is indeed the most trafficked animal in the world. It is threatened by poaching as well as deforestation, which has destroyed its natural habitat. However, not all species of pangolins are classified as critically endangered. So this statement is wrong. Moving on to the third statement. They have large protective keratin scales. What do you mean by keratin? Keratin is a structural fibrous protein. Please note, while keratin scales are found in other animals such as birds, amphibians, among mammals, pangolin is the only animal with keratin scales. So this statement is correct. So by this, the answer is B, 3 only. Now what is the context for this question? The Hindu today had an article on a rescued pangolin from the Ranthambore Tiger Reserve. Moving on to the final question for the day. This is a previous year question from the UPSC 2019 prelims question paper. With reference to Mughal India, what is or are the differences between Jagirdar and Zamindar? The first statement. Jagirdars were holders of land assignments in lieu of judicial and police duties, whereas Zamindars were holders of revenue rights without obligation to perform any duty other than revenue collection. The second statement. Land assignments to Jagirdars were hereditary and revenue rights of Zamindars were not hereditary. Select the correct answer using the code given below. The options are option A, 1 only, option B, 2 only, option C, both 1 and 2, and option D, neither 1 nor 2. Zamindars were hereditary owners of their land who enjoyed certain privileges on hereditary basis. Zamindars played a very important place in Mughal administration. Why? Because they played an important role in the collection of revenue as well as local administration. On the contrary, the Jagirdars under the Mansabdari system of Akbar were assigned large Jagirs or Mansabs. They did not have any obligation to perform any duty. All they had to do was collect the revenue and keep it for them. These Jagirs or Mansabs was allotted to Jagirdars for their work for the Mughal administration. Moving on to the second statement. Land assignments to Jagirdars were hereditary and revenue rights of Zamindars were not hereditary. Even statement 2 is wrong, which leads to our answer as D, neither 1 nor 2. Next, we'll discuss the fact of the day, virtual private network. Now let's understand the context. Recently, the Indian Computer Emergency Response Team, also known as CERTIN, issued new rules which mandated that virtual private network provider keep certain data with themselves about their users for 5 years. Now, this has led to a lot of resentment among the VPN providers. They argue that following these rules will lead to loss of privacy of their service users. So, in this context, it is quite relevant to discuss virtual private network. Now, what do you mean by virtual private network? Basically, internet is a collection of many devices. However, to identify a certain device, service providers globally assign a unique address to each device. This is what is known as the IP address, where IP stands for Internet Protocol. This IP address helps the service providers track a user. However, some users do not want their activity to be tracked. Such users make use of what is known as virtual private network. Now, when virtual private network is switched on, it creates a safe network. How does it do it? It masks the original IP address of the user by rerouting the data. So what it basically does is it creates a proxy identity for your data. Hence, VPN delivers the actual content without any disturbance, but it masks the IP address of the user. That's all for today. Thank you for being with us.